against brother, father against son, and I wasn't there. I attended a Civil War Roundtable discussion group one time, and I said, what happened to my people? And they said, well, you wasn't there. I mean, you know, you played the role of slave, that was it. What you mean, what happened to you people? You wasn't there. We didn't invite you to that part of the war. You didn't come home till afterwards. I asked a lawyer in Pine Bluff once, what about the camps that they had? 1865, that's Freedom Bureau. You got the fact right, but you're just a little ahead of yourself. And he made me think that for 4 years, we left this country in 1861 and came back at the end of 1865. Well, I didn't believe it, first of all. I just didn't believe it. So I started doing a little reading on my own. You'll be surprised what they left in their records. I never do this on a timeline type thing. I want to talk about the Civil War and the impact that it had on African Americans. And I would start, normally everybody would start before something. I like to start a little bit earlier. Lincoln of Norfolk. Abraham Lincoln was elected president. He stood before the world, March 6th, and said that his intention is not to interfere with slavery no matter what. I have no problem with slavery. That was it. I mean, this is an inaugural joke. We're not going to even bother with that. He did say his only purpose was to preserve the Union. To preserve the Union. Now, you have to understand this goes back to 1832. Andrew Jackson was president then, and South Carolina had decided they might leave the Union. They said, well, we don't like these rules, and we're going to leave. Andrew Jackson sent word to him, if you leave, I'm hanging you from the nearest tree. Try me if you want to. That was his word, 1832. So it went without saying, nothing happened. Lincoln became president also. Bush, his country, all of them is left. They separated from their own countries. Lincoln called up and said, well, I'm going to preserve the Union. I am going to preserve the Union. The North, which we think is one group, it was divided into 3 separate sections. There was the Democrats who said that they were going to preserve the Union regardless of what, without worrying about slavery. And there was the Republicans, which Lincoln was a member of. His whole thought was, I am going to preserve the Union. And then there was what they were called the Radical Republicans. They said, well, we're going to preserve the Union and we're going to punish anybody that left. We're going to make sure that they suffer for that. They can't just up and leave the country. We're going to spank their hands real good. That's the 3 groups. Everybody, for the most part, was under the concept that we're going to preserve the Union. Lincoln came in March. April, South Carolina fired on Fort Sumter. Still cool, they still trying to get their footage right, and they started recruiting soldiers. Lincoln called for 75,000 men to come join, so we can put this country back together. Well, okay. In Baltimore, they had a little riot. They was having some real big problems in Baltimore. They wasn't sure, about maybe 15th. So he sent General Butler. Butler, go over there. Now the people in Maryland were a little bit afraid because they thought that because Lincoln had been elected president, he was going to end slavery. They just knew when he sent this army over here that he was going to put all this pressure on them. Butler told the mayor, he said, look, I came over here to preserve the laws of the United States, including foreign slave laws. Anything that happens, I'm not here for resurrection. I'm here to make sure that all United States government laws are followed, including return to slavery. We'll stop any slave rebellion real quick. We'll put it down with force. Right after that, Butler got signed to Fort Monroe in Virginia. Virginia seceded from the Union May the 23rd, 1861. I remember that date because that night after they seceded from the Union, had the big party and everything, 3 guys got in a rowboat and rowed from Hampton Bay across, seeking asylum with John Butler. John Butler looked at him, he talked to him, he answered around. He said, "Oh, what you been doing?" He said, "We've been digging those rifle pits down the road so when y'all come in here, they can shoot you from it. We've been putting up this fortification stuff against you." He said, "Oh!" That's all he said. The next day, the slave owner came over, who was the colonel in the militia there. He sent his major, go over there and see what's wrong and bring me my slave back. Well, Butler listened to him, talked with him, and told him, "No, you can't get nothing. You'd already seceded from the Union, therefore you're not American property no more, so none of our laws apply to you. These are contrabands of war." This is the first time that term was used in the United States during that war. Contraband of war, May 24, 1861. They came in at night, 3 of them. The next day, 6 of them came over. By Sunday, they was coming in at 80 an hour, which created a huge problem for the Union Army even at that stage. All of a sudden, now they had all of these contrabands showing up at their camp. Well, now Lincoln could have told them, "Well, no, you overstepped your bounds. You overstepped your bounds. We haven't got that for you yet." But he didn't. He let it go. And because he let it go, it changed the whole structure of the war. Remember now, this is still in May. In June of that year, Congress passed their first Conscription Act of 1861. This called for any property of a rebel person that had seceded from the Union was conceded. They could take it and use it for their own purpose. All property, land, real property, and personal property, and all their slaves, and just do what they want with them. You say, well, what could they do with them? As early as 1861, they established the principle of that we would put them on these farms and let them work and harvest the crop so we could use that money to support the war. I think we talked about that once in Iran years ago. We said, well, we're going to fight these people and take this all money and use it. We didn't do it. The government did do that in 1861. They probably got the idea from it. But they went back, and this is the first, this is 44 days after Fort Sumter had been fired on, they had to start dealing with the Negro problem. It had become such a problem that they had to deal with it early. That's 1861, that's June 1861. Now they would mess around there for a little while, and you would think, well, that's pretty close. What happened after that? Because nobody knows for sure what they're going to do. Everybody thought it was going to be a short war. 90 days, we'll be home. The Civil War was never intended to go as long as it did. Unfortunately, you have to understand something. African Americans have always waited for gunfire. When we hear gunfire going on, and at the time period, we knew freedom was right around the corner. They went off in the American Revolution, and we was not even, we didn't care who we fought for because everybody you fight for offered you freedom. We fought from both sides of that war. The War of 1812, I'm sure y'all remember the War of 1812. Andrew Jackson's biggest battle, one of the biggest battles of the war then, down in New Orleans. Everybody remembers the Battle of New Orleans. He took his army down there. He took Indians who he couldn't stand, the pirates who he had problems with, and behold, he took some of us with him too. We all fought in the Battle of New Orleans. We just like to hear gunfire, because we know gunfire means that we are going to get some freedom. It was just that simple. So when they started off in 1861, we were standing around the corner, and just like we had microphones, so we heard everything happen. We heard the guns go off. And we knew that all we had to do was get in these camps and they would give us some freedom. That's 1861. Now, that's out on the East Coast. In the middle of the country, some of these abolitionists that became generals and colonels in the army. The most famous one I'm going to tell you about right now is James Lane out of Kentucky. I think some of y'all called them red legs or something back then, or something, you know. Out of Kansas, he ran the first Kansas group. He had no problem putting people in his rank, regardless of their skin texture. As early as June of 1861, he was enlisting soldiers in his cavalry, from his earlier cavalry outfit. By 1862, he had a couple of regiments already. 1st and 2nd Kansas Volunteers. I told you the war started, everybody saw the need to go to war because it was going to be exciting and freedom. Down in Louisiana, there was two groups early in the war. I mean early in the war. They came up to the Confederate General. The general, I have two regiments, armed regiments, that I'd like to put under your flag. General, this 1861, told me, well, no, thank you, but no thank you. This is a white man's war. You will not be needed here. And they went home. Would have stayed home, but later on, I'm going to remind you this a little later. So that was 1861, they was offered from Louisiana 2 regiments. They told them no. Well, the war got hot that first year. The South decided they had to draft people into the service. And they set the ages, generally 1835, liable for 3 years. We're going off to war. The Union did the same thing, but it was still a white man's war. Only white people fought in the war the first 2 years. Supposedly. Now, the South decided they'd do something different. They started recruiting African Americans as servants, 1862, January 1862. Their job was to do all the manual work. Cut down the trees, build the roads, rifle pits. Anybody been out on the battlefield know all these stuff had to be cleared out, and throw your trees, do whatever you had to. Well, the Confederate Army said, we'll put on our men that we need to fight. We got enough slaves to do. And they actually had a draft order where they could go to farm from each landlord and get 1/6 of his total number of slaves and put them in the service. They was not allowed to bear arms, though. They allowed to carry picks, shovels, and everything else. This is 1862, January. Well, everybody trying to tell Lincoln free the slaves, baby. You're crushing. Lincoln said, well, it's too early. The North was losing the war, the early part of the war. Y'all are familiar. The North really suffered early in the war. They wasn't really winning that many battles. They could have easily went either way. Matter of fact, the South, if they didn't win one great big battle, they'd get them to sue for peace. They would bring the British in and we'll form our own country. All we got to do is just whoop them a couple good times. They didn't whoop them enough. Lincoln said, if you don't do something about this war, if you don't change your way, I'm going to have to free you. He said, well, no, don't worry about it. Because Democrats had already said they didn't care. They really didn't care. They could care the least about African Americans. That's it. What we going to do? Don't worry about that. The war was looking pretty dim there for a while. Next thing we know, we come up to a new milestone. The second year of the war, they came out with the second conscription act. They would conscript all the soldiers, the property of the landowner. This was July 1862. They came out with the same day that they passed militia law. Well, the second act said that they would give any African American that was in a Union camp would become free. You could no longer give them back to the owners they came, because in the early stage of the war, if I got to the camp and you gave me my freedom and my owner came, some Union officers would let me go back. They would say, well, here he is, take him with you, and they would send me back. The next year, when they came out with the second act, they said, well, no, you can't give them back. We're not fighting the war for you to keep giving them back and forth because they go and use them again to kill our sons. So we're going to stop that. We're going to give them freedom because all those that was in those camps. Militia law of 1862 actually told them that they could enlist those people. Remember a few minutes ago I was telling you about the Louisiana group that tried to get in the Confederate Army? September of 1862, Butler had asked them, if you have any free colored people here, join the militia. September, he got 2 regiments to join. He didn't get 2 groups to join. He got 2 armed regiments to join his army. They came fully armed with their officers. These are the only 2 regiments that had black officers and men. That was 1862. This is 5 months before the Emancipation Proclamation was issued now. Kansas had 2 colored infantry regiments. By October of 62. All this is coming in. There's another little story I got to tell you about that. I know everybody in here is familiar with General Curtis. Y'all are familiar with General Curtis. Okay, I just want to make sure. General Curtis was from Iowa. When the war broke out, the first thing he did, he said, Governor, he was sitting in the Senate, he said, Governor, let me go and raise an army. They brought him back and they put him in charge. He became the commander of the 5th Iowa. He raised his troops up, got them ready. He sent them over to Missouri, which is a good part of things. From Missouri, he left there and went to Pea Ridge. Y'all all heard of Pea Ridge in Arkansas. Pea Ridge, Perry Grove. Okay, that's the Curtis I'm talking about. He was coming through from Missouri and he started over there and looked like everything he touched. Even when he lost, he won. You know what I'm saying? That's been question about whether he lost his battle here, but the Confederates left the field. You know, when the battle was over with, the only person who was still there was Curtis and his men, but he lost the battle. Well, after those 2 battles, when he finished up there in Pea Ridge, he marched the troops all the way across Arkansas to Helena. Everywhere he went, he set African Americans free. He issued what was called freedom papers. This was 1862, but he got over here early 62 when he came to Helena. By the time he got to Helena, he had recruited, he had freed and recruited men of color in all states. They wasn't armed yet. You have a fort that they just redone down there, Fort Curtis. When he came here, the original fort, African Americans built. They built it with shovels, picks, and wheelbarrows. He had told me, y'all did such a good job for the Confederate soldiers when they came through. I like what you did. You held it down. You look good, you did the work right and everything. I'm going to set you free and pay you to do the same for me. Ooh, sounds interesting. You know, for a man who never had a dime in his life, all of a sudden he was getting paid to do the same thing I was doing for free. He was only giving him $10 a month and one set of rations a day. But now here's men that said, ooh, they joined by the thousand. They came and worked for by thousand. They ran the wagon train. They cut the wood. They washed the dishes. did everything. They came through here. 1862. Now Curtis, I know he did this. He had a farm around here that he put him on to work. How do we know all of this? Because, well, Curtis must have did something, because there's an article about him and the money situation about the contraband cotton. He was selling it all and didn't give all the proceeds back to where it was going. But we know he did this by 1862. When Preston got here in 1863 and they had the Battle of Helena, the African Americans that had helped build that had already been here working for over 6 months. So when Montague and all them came running up the road, there was 7,500 of them coming running up the road against me. What was it? I think it was 3,000? Around 3,000 was here. They were heavily outnumbered. But all of a sudden, he used all this contraband for us. He owned here in Helena. Helena has such a rich history that y'all can be here forever talking about what's been on around here in Helena. But this is 1863 in July, 4th of July now today, which is really unique because the only reason they wanted to attack Helena was so Vicksburg could get some relief from Grant doing so bad down there. He had them on the siege for 90 days. They're trying to break the siege down there, so they said they come up here, open up another front. Grant had to turn around and come back up here. Didn't work. It didn't work. But it was a nice thought. That's 1863, July. So you see this battle going on. Right after the battle, he had one regiment that he put in the field the next day. Became the 54th. Later on he put in the 57th out of Helena, who fought the rest of the war from different places. U.S. colored troops here in Arkansas started here in Helena. Let me go back to Curtis before I forget about him. I told you that he was coming across Arkansas and he's freeing slaves and everything. He was hired. Now you say, well, how do you think he was hired African American? In my research, in my diggings and finding, I went out to a cemetery and I found this one head marker in an African American cemetery from a Union soldier, per se. If you ever notice the seal, you can tell the Union soldier from a Confederate soldier just by looking at the seal on the stone. And it said the 5th Iowa Infantry, Company C, Thomas Best. What is he doing buried in a black cemetery? First person comes to my mind. So I went to look him up. He was a black man who worked as a cook in the 5th Iowa. Doing that crossing. He had came across with Curtis somewhere. They had picked him up and he became a cook in one of his companies. So we know he had cooks in his company. He had teamsters in his company. All these were black people that he had hired on the spot. They coming across. This is 62. We still haven't got to the Emancipation Proclamation. We're still hidden, still a story yet to be told. Which becomes so funny because you think about it, see. The Emancipation Proclamation freed all slaves that was in Union-controlled areas. Did not free any that was outside the area where the Union had posts at. Only those. Well, when the troops here in Helena left going to Little Rock in 1863, they left from here and they went through the Ball's Bluff. They sweeping that away. They're going towards Little Rock. And when they got to the Ball's Bluff, they raised another regiment of African American troops right there at the Ball's Bluff, the 56th. They guarded the river the whole war. They went from here to the Ball's Bluff to Little Rock. They got to Little Rock. I'm going to switch over a little bit and go to Pine Bluff stuff because I know it. They got to Pine Bluff, and Pine Bluff sent some people up to Little Rock. Can you please send us some help? We need some relief. We'd like to carry on business as was before the war. Is it possible? They sent Powell Clayton down there with 500 men. That was in September 25th. He went down, set up his little camp out there in Pine Bluff. They patrolled the area, did a little marching around for just about a month. Just about a month. October 24th, somebody got the great idea to we'll run them back into the river. They sit up there on the bus, let's just run them into the river. So my dude came up there again. He got 2,500 men. You know there's only 500 of them down there. Let's go and run them in the river. And he came charging up the road, head geared back, strong, going north fast. He got up there. Somebody jumped the gun. They shot the gun too early. And the people got warned. Powell Clayton, who was here during the Battle of Helena, he fought here then, the 5th Kansas. And he said, this looks like this is going to be a repeat. Let me see what I'm going to do. It's October 25th, 1863. He called up his captain and said, Captain, go down to these camps, get my contraband up here. We're going to blockade the city. He had been in town over a month. He had over 900 contraband. You hear me? 900 contraband. Unfortunately, they counted contraband like people counted people when Jesus fed thousands. They only counted men. You know, they very rarely counted women and children because they couldn't do nothing. He had 3 camps in Pine Bluff. He went out there and he got 300 men to come up, just put barricades out. They ran down to the warehouse, pulled out all this cotton, blockaded the street, all the street leading up to the square, put cotton everywhere, put his guns behind it so you have something to shoot out over. Well, the fight came to Pine Bluff, they got hot. They got hot and tight. Some of the cotton caught on fire. Woo! I got to put the cotton out because it caused hazard. He told his other contraband, go and put the cotton. Break that bale of cotton loose. Get rid of it. Put another one down. He sent 300 people down, 300 contraband down to the water line to form a bucket brigade. I need to put these fires out. He had to put them out. So he put 300 just to carry water back and forth. Another 300 put new bells in it. Some of them he gave guns to also. I think my dude must not have read history too well because he kept repeating the same mistake. He kept seeing all these African Americans sitting out there on the farm and not understanding they could be used. Because he's proud of that. Confederate Army didn't use them. You wouldn't be, no, it was against the law for African Americans because of the gun. 1863, it was against the law. Kirby Still, Confederate General, and said that any man who would give a slave a gun should be hung. We will hold him until we can find a place to hang him. It just wasn't done. It was just, no. That's 1863. Now, you think about it, you keep on saying, well, that's a little strange. We're talking about a mindset that would allow you to go through all this like that. They had just been told from some stretch of imagination, because the word must have spread, if I make it to these camps, I would be free. I know that they came down from Little Rock in September. By October, 34 days later, there was 900 of them there. Pine Bluff before the war didn't have but 1,100 people total. Slave, white, kids, grown up, old folks, there wasn't but 1,100 people there. All of a sudden, the population just folded over. We're talking about 1863. 1864 was a big year. There was a general named Lonzo Thomas. Granny told him, said, now look, I want you to go and organize these people as fast as you can. He had the whole Mississippi Valley. Grant, big man in Mississippi, he was a big man in the South of the Union. Army. And he had all these people there. And Thomas' job was to recruit and sign up all these people. In Arkansas, he got just under 6,000 men within the first year. He had 7 regiments within a year. They were coming in at 100 a day that he put in the service. And I'm talking about from Tennessee all the way back down to Louisiana. He ended up enlisting 79,000 men within the course of a year and a half. The Confederate Army had just about ran out of new people they could enlist. You understand? And to show you that they had ran out was that now they started to look, where am I going to get all these men from? So they came out with a new thing. They want to draft people at a different age. We're going to have to expand our age group a little bit. It was 17 to 35. We might need to go up to 50 now. We got to get some of these old men out here. We really need more people because they wasn't getting anybody. So they went up to Still. Still resisted. Claiborne, a local man from here, a local journal from here, for the South. In January 1864, he had came up with this unique idea. Let us enlist African Americans. Let us take some of our slaves and make them soldiers. We will offer them freedom so they will fight for us. This is January. Well, that didn't go that big. That didn't go that big. So they started a whistling campaign. I think the boy lost his mind. That don't make sense. We're not going to do that. That'd be humiliating. That'd be disgraceful to the soldiers that we have put in the field so far. We will not do that. January 1864. The war was still going on. They still had a struggle on their hands. Come March 1865, Jefferson Davis said, well, I guess he was right. Let's recruit some of our African American slaves and make them into soldiers. March 12, 1865. Probably would have been a different side to the story, but Lee surrendered April the 9th, 1865. He missed it by that much. He was within 38 days of trying to get Lee some help. How many people served altogether in the war? There's different figures. I do know we made up 1/4 for the Union Navy. Oh yeah, right. I did tell y'all we fought the Navy too. We fought everywhere. Anybody who's giving us some freedom, we fought for. I have 6 African Americans who got the Medal of Honor fighting for the Navy. The best story told about people in the Navy was Robert Spaulding. I got to tell you this story because how many of y'all have heard the story of Robert Spaulding? Nobody? Oh, you heard the story? Okay. Robert Spaulding was a black slave on a little gunboat running up and down the river, South Carolina. He just riding the boat. And at night, the officers would go ashore to their home. They'd leave the slaves on the ship. Somebody would tend to the fire, make everything run okay. Well, Robert Spaulding was doing this, and he was doing the job like he was supposed to. So one night, he decided, well, this war was good enough. I had enough of this war. Him and the rest of the crew got their families on board and sailed out from that port. They just pulled out. Now, remember now, they got Confederate flags and everything flying. And he took it to the Union line. And the Union soldiers got ready, loaded their guns, they getting ready to blow it out of the water until they see all these African Americans on the deck of the ship dancing. He said, oh, wait a minute, let's see what they're going to do. He pulled in, he pulled up right flag true, he pulled in, he told them what he was going to do, and he surrendered the ship. The United States Navy was so glad of this. He said, well, Rob, you did a good job. We're going to make you captain of this ship, the Planet. This is your ship now. You run this for us. And he did that the rest of the war. After the war, he became consul in South Carolina. I thought I just had to throw that in just to let you know. There's a whole lot of stuff. I was telling you about the guy that's buried up in Crown Blanc. He has a service record from where they gave him his pension at. He got $7 a month pension. $7 in, what was it, about 1890? Probably good money back then. It was better money than nothing. But he got a pension from the government, and he got his headstone where he was buried with military honors. All I'm trying to say is that we played a bigger role in the history of the Civil War everywhere. Most of y'all seen the movie Glory, the 54. And everybody said, well, the 54. Everybody knows that's because they made a movie out of it. It is a big movie, they talk about it. But right here locally in this area, we had so many more things going and so many more people involved that's not known. Our history has been hidden away for so many years that, like I said, it was coming to tell people, like, I have been told that we wasn't here, that we had no role. The Civil War was a white man's war, and you wasn't involved. That's not true, and you owe it to yourself, if you're going to study the Civil War, to study it out of new eyes, because there's something missing in there. There's some stories in there that they haven't told you in the past. Some real good stories. I hope I have excited your interest just a little bit, just scratch the surface so you want to find out some of these little stories. I will take questions now. Anybody got any questions?